Good evening, everyone. I apologize for being late. We were having some technical difficulties, so I'm hoping that this. I've been working with our technology expert, and we had a new way of doing our lives, and it appears I have to get back with her because it didn't work tonight. So I'm doing it the old way. So if it comes across, and hopefully the sound is a little bit better, and it's not so. We were trying to work the sound issues out that we had last week. At any rate, let's get right into it. I think I asked people earlier to talk about your memories of Emmanuel for this 57th anniversary, 57 years as a church. What are some of your stories of Emmanuel's legacy, and what do you remember the most? And I think Mother Martha came on. Martha Huffman came on, and she said that one of the memories she had was that Pastor Gaines would always say, when the church was packed, he would always say, "Let my choir out," because we march in and then we march out. What a great memory that was, and it definitely brought back memories for me. Before I get into it, let's begin. We want to continue to talk a little bit about Pastor Jason's Did He Say That series that he's in, and yesterday's message, What's It Worth to You? I think we all know that was a great message, resonated so much to us, and talked about the kingdom of heaven and the parable that Jesus gave of the treasure and the pearl. Loved his BMX bike introduction. Don't let nobody ride my bike. I think that was everybody's parents' statement. Nobody can ride your bike but you, because they knew that if you lived in the areas that we lived in, somebody can take that bike. And so I loved the parable. I think that the gist of it, in what he stated, and I'll just say that before we move into the stories, is don't fall for the enemy's golf ball's faith exchange for your bike. We cannot fall for whatever the devil throws our way in that little golf ball that he accepted from the buddy, thinking he would get his bike back. That's the same thing with our faith. We can fall for things that the devil puts out there that are smaller than what God has given us. So what a lesson that was, and what a parable or analogy that he used that was very good. One of his statements, Jesus tells parables to reveal and conceal. And I love that statement as well. And then I also just like the usage of Jesus' strategy in using the pearl. Something small that starts out as an irritation. We know how pearls are formed in clams. And in his use of it as a treasure, being the kingdom, being something such greater. Well, another great piece to think about. I love the piece on the kingdom not being synonymous with the church. Very different. The kingdom is very different from the church. Kingdom access, can come to people who are not even in the church. There are people who are not in the church that have kingdom access. And the reason why we are here is because of the Lord. We know that. But imperfect people can be used by God for the kingdom. And he often used imperfect people, because if he's using you and I, we are both all imperfect. So I loved a lot of things that he said yesterday as we continue in that series. But 57 years with Emmanuel, one of the main things that I share with you guys about Emmanuel's history is what drew me to Emmanuel. 1988, I came out to visit my aunt in California from the Midwest, and I attended a workshop. And at that time, it was a workshop housed by God's chosen few. I think you guys know that group out of our church. At any rate, at this workshop, I experienced, meeting a bunch of young people who were at the workshop. We had a youth choir that was a part of that. And just the whole Emmanuel was just this grandiose place. I came from a pretty decent sized church in the Midwest. My church wasn't small, but Emmanuel was just a whole nother level of music, whole nother level of singing, and it was just the top tier of what I had ever heard, and so much so that I had made so many friends that it felt like home. And so it wasn't too hard to have a decision that if I wanted to come back to California after I graduated, and do something in out here, that was available to me. But Emmanuel was a large part of that. And then just the rich history of music. I believe many of you guys remember at the time the minister of music was Houston Simmons. And then we had Michael Driver, and then we had, of course, Earlene Davis was a minister of music as well as Virginia Gross Roberts. Minister Roberts was a minister. So we've had a great legacy of leadership. Parrish Thompson was a minister of music at Emmanuel. So we had a great history of leadership, of people that knew music, and our choirs were just always top tier. So that is one thing that I know is a great piece of our legacy, that we've always had just amazing choirs. But what I want to speak of in particular about the legacy is out of a text. And that text is found in Matthew 16, 13 through 19. And Jesus is speaking again. And this is just a short ways away from where Pastor preached, a few chapters over into the future. He talks again. And he comes to Caesarea Philippi, and he asks the disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" Well, they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, some say Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" And Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you." There's that word, revealing, that Pastor Jason mentioned to you. "You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter," which means rock. Now here is the key verse. "And upon this rock I will build my church, and the powers of hell will not conquer it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven. Whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven." And that's Matthew 16. So I think that what we can say about our 57-year legacy is that through all that Emmanuel has been through, the gates of hell has never prevailed against our church. During this pandemic, many churches have had to close their doors. Many of churches people have had to downsize or say goodbye to the locations that they were in because they couldn't afford it. Emmanuel actually thrived during the pandemic. We actually had a budget where we had more money coming in than we probably should have. So what does that tell you? It tells you that our church has that history, and that the gates of hell are not going to prevail against our church. And we have seen many ups and downs. We have been through some things, and some, even leadership things, but every time God has brought us out, and Emmanuel continues to stand and continues to do work. I would like to say that it's probably because of the people. We have some of the best people, great hearts, that care. It's always been a caring church. When people pass, when we need to rally behind people in sickness, our church does an excellent job at doing that. Now, of course, we're not perfect. There are no perfect churches, and if you go to a church and you expect it to be perfect, it's not perfect the day you get there, because you're not perfect. So we have that history. But I just want us to share tonight, if you have something that you want to throw in the chat, or just comment on about your memory from maybe you were here all 57 years. I know we only have a few members that were here that long. Or maybe you just have a story of what Emmanuel means to you. Why don't you go ahead and put that in the chat or comment? And of course, you can always go back to this video and comment later. But our church has this great history of being there for people, being a spirit-led church, being a church where the music has always been, the worship experience has always been amazing. I recall times where the choir would sing and Pastor Gaines couldn't preach because the Spirit of the Lord was just so high. And then I recall times where we sang and he came up and the Spirit of the Lord was so high that he just went to a whole nother level about what he was going to say. So that just goes to show you about the Spirit of the Lord and the power that we have because we are connected to the kingdom. And I think that when we go back to those parables, that kingdom connection, that kingdom access gives us access to the power of the kingdom. And we have that. And so as we continue to remember in this 57th year what God has been doing, He is truly. I love our slogan that we continue to be a place where God is doing something special, and He didn't just start doing it. God has been doing it the whole time. 57 years of something special happening at Emmanuel. Many people have come through. Many people have been baptized. My children, godchildren, people that have come through the church to be baptized and to be a part of Emmanuel, and just the family orientation is to a point now that you always hear me say, I just call Emmanuel family. And so just want to share those pieces of nuggets with you all tonight. As we continue to go forward in Pastor Jason's series, let's pay attention and be mindful to what God is speaking and what He is revealing in our lives. God bless you all tonight. Have a great night.